What's up, Acadiana, and welcome to Offsides. I'm Shannon Wilkerson here with Brandon Comeaux. Thanks for joining us for today's broadcast. We'll be with you until 6 o'clock. This one is really juicy. What we're going to be talking about at 4 o'clock is Disney and Snow White and Kirsten Bell, who is recently made some comments about Snow White, basically saying that there are some problems that we have with Disney movies, and Snow White, the movie was sexist because the prince kissed her. He didn't ask her if he could kiss her, and it really kind of sparked an interest for Brandon and I. Mm-hmm. I did a little research on older Disney movies and newer Disney movies, mm-hmm. and Disney does have a little baggage out there. Okay, I think it's ridiculous to look at it this way, but when you apply the political correctness that is expected in today's film world, you definitely still have some problems going on with Disney currently, and you got some problems that occurred in the past.
I'll be honest, when I look at the films, and not just film, but television as well, I would say that this new wave of Disney that started, I'd say about 10, 20 years ago, mm-hmm. has a lot more controversial things in it than the old wave does, which we're going to talk about kind of these new Disney characters, whether they're voice characters or whether they're actual people on TV, how now they're all of a sudden starting to slam these old Disney movies, mm-hmm. And it's actually really ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. Okay, you know what this argument is really about is these movies, these storylines are love stories, mm-hmm. Okay? And so the overall message is that you have to be married to live happily ever after. Mm-hmm. And normally the hero is the prince or the king or a knight or some type of a masculine, powerful figure. And the female is normally some type of a damsel in distress. Mm-hmm. Let's go through a few of them. Yeah. All right. Snow White. Mm-hmm. You know, basically, Snow White is sitting around in the woods waiting for a handsome man to come along and rescue her, and she's living with the dwarfs. Yeah. Okay? Now, she seemed pretty happy with the dwarfs. Yeah. She didn't seem like this miserable, old maid sitting around, but that's the overall message.
She was rated on hand and foot with the dwarfs.
I thought she had it pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, 7 little guys taking care of you? Yeah. I mean, how bad can it be?
Yeah.
Okay, then you've got Cinderella. Uh-huh. All right, Cinderella is, she's got the wicked stepmother. She's got her bad stepsisters, and so they have those villains, right? And then you've got Prince Charming. I mean, even his name says a lot. He's Prince Charming. Uh-huh. And in an effort to find him a bride, the king wants all of the women in the area, all of the rich people, mostly aristocrats, to doll up their daughters. Okay, that's a whole other thing, okay, because they had to be beautiful. Mm-hmm. All right, you didn't see Prince Charming hooking up with any women that were not deemed fair and beautiful. Mm-hmm. But now you've got Cinderella, and Cinderella needs to be rescued, and her fairy godmother comes along. And actually, reading up on this story today, I came across, you want to hear something ridiculous? No. I came across this theory. Somebody did a study, one of these crazy professors did a study on Cinderella and came up with this theory that Cinderella and the fairy godmother were actually lesbians, okay? And they were secretly in love. No. And it's backed up with all the dialogue. They analyzed the dialogue between the two of them. And Cinderella really didn't want to be with Prince Charming. She had a thing for the fairy godmother, and the fairy godmother had a thing for, it's ridiculous.
The idiotic things people come up with, man.
It's pathetic, okay?
Yeah. It's like trying to say Bert and Ernie were gay. Come on now.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, even Captain Hook. Okay, with Peter Pan.
Yeah.
Okay, Captain Hook, he's obsessed with finding Peter Pan, and he decides to capture Tiger Lily. Okay, because he claims that Tiger Lily knows how to speak to those Redskins. Oh. Okay, so you got baggage there too. Okay, then you've got some problems even in 101 Dalmatians. Cruella de Vil, in a scene from 101 Dalmatians, Cruella de Vil is racing through the street, driving her car. She cuts off a car, and the driver from the other car yells at Cruella de Vil, calling her a crazy female. Oh, okay.
Well, she was a crazy female.
She was a crazy female. That's exactly
nutty.
right. Okay, then you've got The Little Mermaid, which is more modern.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 1989. The first ones we're talking about are decades and decades old. Okay. So Ariel.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Ariel gives up her entire life just to be with the man she loves. Yes. Okay. I mean, that's what every man wants. But guess what? That's what every woman wants too. Women want a man that would be willing to give up their entire life to be with them because they're so in love.
Absolutely.
Okay, so all these things are now being twisted and turned. It's really getting to it's the perfect illustration of how pathetic and ridiculous we've become as a society.
It is. And one thing that brought this up, you mentioned Kristen Bell. Kristen Bell, she's one of the voices of Anna, as a matter of fact, in Disney's hit film Frozen. And so she went and voiced concerns about the message that Snow White sends to daughters. She says, and sending to her daughters in particular, she said that she asked her daughters, well, don't you think that it's weird that the prince kisses Snow White without her permission? Because you cannot kiss someone if they're sleeping. And so it basically goes on to say how she talks with her daughters about that and how the fact that it's wrong for him to kiss her while she's sleeping. Never mind the fact that the man saved her life. Okay, let's throw that out the window.
Yeah, well, and that's another bad message, according to the liberals and people on the left, is that, the fact that he has the magical kiss.
Yeah.
He possesses the chemistry to save her life, with one kiss. And so... yeah, come on. Y'all
People are going nuts over make-believe.
Exactly. It's exactly what it is. It's make-believe. It's harmless. They're beautiful stories. I remember going to the movies, as a child and going to see these Disney films, Peter Pan, and so many of them my parents would bring us to. And, now everything has got to be politically correct, and it's critiqued and evaluated, and everyone has got to give their opinion. And now, so here we go. We're looking, I've got all these studies. Kristen Bell is the most recent one, and they're going to be raising hell about all these movies like Snow White.
232-1542. We go to the Cajun Harley hotline. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
If any of y'all guys ever want to know what it feels like to be Prince Charming.
Yeah.
That plane.
I know. The Philippines. All right. Thanks for calling.
232-1542. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, I couldn't wait to get in, guys. Just chomping at the bit on this. I read that article about Kristen Bell today, and even the movie Frozen that she voiced in. I don't remember the young lady's name. You said Anna was one of them, but it was about two sisters who got in a fight. So is that how she wants her daughters to react to fights? It also involved one of the daughters taking a stranger, just letting him assist her, just a guy off the street. It also had one of the girls runs away to go find the other one without telling anybody where she's going. And this is a movie that she, we can say starred in. But more importantly, the article is more about her, how she explains this to her children. And I would like to know how she explains her movies to her children. Her most latest one is called Lifeguard, and I'll put this very gently. She has relations with a guy in a public bathroom where she shows her mommy parts briefly. So how does she explain things like that to her daughter? And now people can go, well, they don't watch those movies. Well, if she felt that strongly about these other movies, these Disney movies, why she let her kids watch those?
She's pretty vulgar in her movies, too, as a matter of fact, as well.
Yeah. I wouldn't know what y'all are talking about. It's funny you bring up Frozen. Okay, it's funny you bring up Frozen because Frozen is one of the movies recently. Disney is deliberately marketing its movies to be less girly. Frozen was one of them that is a good example. If you'll notice, a lot of the newer movies with Disney, they don't want them to be girly. They have titles that don't have girls or girly names in them. Gender-neutral names like Frozen.
Well, and what they've also done, so I'm going to bring the TV shows into this. When you talk about television shows marketed to children, where you have the man is this big goofy idiot, dummy, and the wife is the strong woman that really is the star of the family. That's what Disney has been promoting so much lately, and it really changed. And once they got into the 2000s, probably midway through the first decade in the 2000s, that's when things really started to change with these Disney movies and these television shows. And like I said, they're the ones that are putting out more controversial topics than what we've talked about with these older movies back in the day.
Yeah. What do you think, caller?
I totally agree, and it just seems like she's so hypocritical with the movies that she does, and her biggest point is how does she explain this to her children, but yet she's going out there doing borderline soft porn, seriously, especially Lifeguard, and movies like Couples Retreat. It's all about couples getting it on, even though it was a comedy. Well, you know what? These are not realistic movies either. These are stories, make-believe stories. Mm-hmm. So you can't use that I'm an actress and these aren't real events, because neither are these.
Yeah. Well, it's fiction, and so are these other movies we're talking about. Good point. Thanks for the call.
All right, 232-1542. We'll take this quick commercial break. Be right back. Welcome back into Offsides, 232-1542. So if you think what Kristen Bell had to say was outrageous, wait till you hear what Keira Knightley had to say as well.
Bell's criticism coming just one day after actress Keira Knightley said her daughter is not allowed to watch Cinderella.
She's banned from seeing certain children's movies, right?
Yeah.
What are they?
Cinderella, banned, because, she waits around for a rich guy to rescue her. Don't rescue yourself, obviously.
Right.
And this is the one that I'm quite annoyed about, because I really like the film, but Little Mermaid. I mean, the songs are great, but do not give your voice up for a man. Hello?
Oh,
just taking it a little too seriously there.
Yeah. Everybody in society now is taking everything way too seriously.
232-1542. All right, caller, you are on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, guys.
Hey, what's up?
I know a little bit about this because I read into a lot of this stuff, and this stuff it benefits the party of the political party that thinks on emotions. Of course, some of these movies that I've seen recently, like the Incredibles, the new Incredibles 2, there's so much stuff in there that they put to. The reason why first of all, let me go back to that. The reason why they're so offended and trying to get things changed is because they know the power and the propaganda and the things that they put in film. So they think it's so powerful and it works the opposite way, and that it might undo some of the social mess that they're trying to cause with the women being empowered and the women, taking it a step more and not needing a man and things like that. So that's why they're so paranoid about what's in movies. But the new Incredibles, for instance, has lots of references to the term like undocumented, has lots of references to like transgender type people, like superhero. There's a transgender superhero. There's one that where it questions whether the boy likes her and the girl likes her also, and so it's kind of leaving some confusion out there. So they do these kind of things. They've been doing this for a long time. Lots of the black and white Masonic spiral stuff to kind of, while they're saying things in repetition and playing the because the 3D puts the spiral right in your eyes, and it's kind of cheesy to think well that's kind of like a brainwashing thing. Maybe that's a conspiracy, but it's still repetition while you're hyper focused on it. So there's lots of things like that. They try to change pop culture into the way that they feel. It's all about their emotions and the way that they feel it needs to be. And they of course want this whole new age to be about the hating of the man, to show that the girls don't need the man. So they're going to keep playing that. And so to go back and try to erase some of these favorites and to correct things, they're going to do this. They've been doing that for years. And meanwhile, they're amping up on their side, putting all the propaganda in to replace that old thought process of a woman. They would call it an old thought process of being a normal woman, having a husband, and kids and cooking and, doing normal things. They don't want them to do that. So they're going to keep doing this. They're going to keep hating.
You know what they need to do? They just need to mind their own damn business. Females now are well smart enough, well informed enough, and well strong enough to make these decisions on their own. I don't know one woman, right now in my life that or young woman or girl, I don't know any female at all that I would not consider to be smart enough and strong enough to decide what they want to do with their own lives. They don't need anybody coaching them. If they want to be lawyers, they know that they can do that. If they want to be housewives, they know that they can do that. Thanks for the call.
All right, 232-1542. Caller, you on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, kind of taking off what the other caller said about this being propaganda. Yes, absolutely. And this is psychological warfare at its best. We've had a lot of small people figure this out, and they put it into action. And we're suffering the consequences from it. Just earlier today, I'm watching TMZ, and they show this actress or singer or something who had a Halloween party. Well, this one guy dressed up in a sombrero and a poncho.
Oh, you can't do that.
Off. Well, the dude was a Mexican. She came back, straightened the whole thing out. All you people, you jump a gun, criticizing me, and she explained, this guy is a really good friend of mine who happens to be Mexican. I'm saying, my God.
People are just looking for things to be offended by.
They are. I mean, I found all kinds of different things about these movies. People are protesting and they have negative opinions about Pocahontas, the movie Pocahontas, because it depicts Native Americans, stereotypes them in a certain way. Aladdin, because the girl has been promised to marry somebody. Even The Lion King. The Lion King, there's people that say that The Lion King is racist because when the lion is trampled by the wildebeests are black.
Oh, my God.
I'm telling you, I'm looking at right at it. Okay. Another one was Dumbo. I've got some negative things that were said about Dumbo because there's a scene
Besides
in Dumbo.
About his ears?
Well, because guess what? The crows in Dumbo, one of the head crow, his name is Jim Crow.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Oh,
and all the crows are depicted as black people. They've got these heavy accents. So, I mean, people are just looking and looking. When you've got your sensitivity antenna set on super high, you're going to find crap all day long to be offended by. But it's still crap.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, again, talking about programming, I sit back and I watch things like Father Knows Best, My Three Sons, programming that has a storyline and makes sense, being realistic. They run programs today like Empire. It's the only program I can think that's popped up into my head, but it's all about thuggery. That's not what we're about, and promoting this as much as they do, just like this program Netflix popped in, Blackish. If that's not racist, please explain racism to me.
Well, that show burns me up anytime I see a commercial for it.
It goes on and on.
Thank you, caller.
I even came across Winnie the Pooh. Winnie the Pooh is harmful portrayal of overweight people.
Oh,
okay?
come on.
I swear. Then they're mad at Lady and the Tramp. Makes light of sexual assault when the boy dog non-consensually kisses the girl dog as they share a plate of spaghetti.
Well, you say that, and it's interesting you bring that up because there was a professor that I was reading about earlier that basically called Prince Charming a sex offender. And he goes on to say that these fairy tales allow for sexual violence. As a matter of fact, this was a quote, said that Sleeping Beauty and Snow White, the princess, portray, quote, quasi-compulsive, obscene sexual acts on an unconscious partner.
Good Lord. Now, this one will make you sick, okay? I'm reading it, okay? The only acceptable and even halfway progressive Disney movie is The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Oh.
Look at this. The straight white male is hideous, deformed virgin beast, rightly exiled from polite society. This indeed is how all white men ought to be portrayed.
Dang.
I'm not making this up,
awful.
Okay? It's awful.
All right. We'll take this quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll get more of your comments on this, 232-1542.
All right, here we go. We're getting back into it. Shannon Wilkerson, Brandon Comeaux, talking about how ridiculous people are. Now they're analyzing children's movies to determine whether or not they're politically correct. Here's another one. Toy Story is problematic because the boy only owns gender-typical toys. Peter Pan and Dumbo and the Jungle Book, all notoriously racist. The Sword and the Stone, 90 minutes of toxic masculinity. Tarzan features a man who thinks he's a monkey, which is clearly meant to mock and trivialize body dysmorphia.
When he's obviously a caveman, we can talk for a whole show about that.
I mean, come on. All right. A lot of phone calls coming in.
All right, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
What do y'all think we can do about this problem?
I don't know, man. Make fun of it. I really think that that's the truth. I think that the more ridiculous these opinions become, all right, and the more ridiculous the left becomes with these opinions, I think the best thing to do is to laugh at them. You can't argue with them, all right? You can't convince them that they're wrong. And they will scream all day long. But when you laugh at this is when you really send the clearest message. That is, it's so ridiculous, it's comical.
Well, I think it's twofold, because I think you're right on that. You laugh on it. I think the other part of it is that you get the word out enough, which is what we're doing here, about all of these Disney characters and people in these Disney movies, and you don't take your children to go see them. You hit them where it hurts, the pocketbook.
Yeah. And I'll tell you something, they are hypocritical because they keep on doing it. I'll tell you something, female characters now in Disney films have less dialogue than ever. Listen to these statistics, all right? Snow White, 1937. Snow White, the character, had 50% of all the words spoken in the movie. All right,
only 50. I thought she had 50%. More than that.
Well, you're talking about all the characters, all of the dialogue. Okay, Snow White spoke 50% of all the words in that movie.
Yeah.
Cinderella, 60%. Sleeping Beauty, 75%. Now let's look at some current ones. The Little Mermaid, 25%. Beauty and the Beast, 30%. Aladdin, only 15%. Pocahontas, 25%. And so as they are trying to get more politically correct, they are giving the lead role of the female less dialogue than they were in these older films that they find so offensive.
232-1542. All right, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, that's what Disney is doing. They're putting, females as the lead roles in all of these films because they're trying to push an agenda and they're making the men look bad. Like, for example, with Star Wars, since they took over Star Wars, this last movie, they totally destroyed it. I mean, the fans hated it because they said that the female character was like this Mary Sue, where she was like so powerful, even more powerful than Luke Skywalker. Mm-hmm. And look what they did to Luke Skywalker. Made him look like he was, I mean, they just destroyed his character from, what he was in the previous films. So, I mean, it's just, more of the SJW, social justice warrior, political left.
It's like there's just always this score to settle, and it'll never get right, which is why you're just going to have this more and more. And again, I think people have to hit them where it hurts the most, the pocketbooks.
Yeah. Well, it brings up the ultimate question. What do they want? Do they want real equality, or do they want payback?
Payback.
Okay, because that's what we're talking about here. Thanks for the call, brother.
All right, 232-1542. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, let's think about it. These are the same people that gave us Britney Spears and the Musketeer Squad that all came out to be who all of these weird kids are following, like Ariana Grande and whoever the hell else they call themselves. This is the kind of people that they put up on a pedestal, and now look at their lives. I mean, you got Ariana broken up with one crackhead to date another crackhead, and, they're so heartbroken. It's like, holy, I just get sick of it. My grandmother used to rent storybooks from the library that was in the form of an album. You'd rent the album story, and you would go home and listen to it, and then you'd bring it back the next week.
I remember those.
Another one.
I remember those.
And I used to listen to that with my grandmother, and you literally had to picture the movie. I remember one of these Disney movies, I forgot which one it was, but it was my first one before I've actually seen it, and it was in one of those albums, and you get a different visual whenever you see it, but your imagination runs wild whenever you're just hearing it. So imagine being a blind person hearing these movies. I doubt that a blind person could call racism or any of these kind of things that they're claiming if they just paid attention to the story.
Yeah. I believe that their ultimate, thanks for the call, very insightful. I believe that their ultimate goal is to have a society where everybody looks the same, everybody dresses the same, females don't wear any makeup, they, everybody, and that to me sounds like George Orwell. Yeah. Everybody wearing the same type of clothes. You only have maybe 3 different choices of clothing that you could wear because you don't want to wear anything that's too nice because some people might become offended. All right. And your hair can't be too long or pretty because you might offend somebody that doesn't have long, pretty hair. You know, I mean, that's what I think that they really envision as being a happier, more well-adjusted world. To me, that sounds like a disaster.
Yeah, to me, I think of communism when I hear that, where everybody's got to be on the same level. And it is a depressing thought to think about. 232-1542. Caller, you're up. Go ahead. Hello,
communism
caller.
is the right. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're
up, man.
You're good.
Oh, I'm up. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, Brandon, you're right. It does sound like communism. You know, if everybody is special, then no one is special. Number one.
Yeah, you're right.
But you know, this for the people that are in favor of this stuff, I can draw a little quick picture that I thought about earlier. You know, let's say they remake James Bond, and they decide to make it all, you know, in touch with the new age people and all that, and make it to where James Bond is this ghetto guy from, say, I don't know, Detroit, Chicago, somewhere that has the, you know, the ghetto slang and all that, you know, and they say this is the way it should be. This, you know, and you know, we think of James Bond as this English speaking, you know, Sean Connery type. So let's say, so they're all about that. But when you take a movie like Shaft, say you're going to remake Shaft, and you put a nerdy Jewish businessman from San Francisco and in that same spot, then all of a sudden it's kind of like, well, you know, this isn't right. Well, you know, so it doesn't go both ways with them. It's just their way, and that's it. You know. Yeah. And
I tell you, I was in a conversation with a friend of mine not long ago, and the whole James Bond thing came up, and I believe that it won't be long. Maybe the next James Bond will be a black man. Now, I think he's going to be British, okay, and I think he's going to have
Idris Elba. I could see that.
Yeah, maybe. Thanks for the call.
Thank you, caller. All right, 232-1542. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
I agree. You can't really argue with any of these people. We don't know how their mind works and things like that. We just try to get and surpass it. I don't know if you mentioned it yet, but I remember there was a woman that was woman or group was trying to rebuke or remove the book, The Little Red Riding Hood, because her basket contained a bottle of wine, and she thought that was promoting alcoholism. So happens time and time again with more of these characters, with the books and things like that displeases somebody that thinks it's bad for the rest of society. It's kind of hard to explain anything to them that it's just the book, it's just the movie, it's just a character.
Yeah, it's fiction, okay? It's make-believe. It's not real. And guess what? Wine does exist. People do drink it a lot.
Thank you, caller. All right, 232-1542. Caller, you're on the Cajun Harley Hotline. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm old enough to remember when the radical feminist movement started back in the late 60s. And they're the culprits. I remember when they started this garbage. But, again, the men allowed them to take over. And now we have this political correctness that has run amok. And now we're won't be able to have an imagination, have fun. It's really gotten ridiculous. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, 232-1542. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey. I'm starting a movement. It's called DGAD. Don't give a damn and laugh at these people because they're idiots.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think that the best response is just to laugh at them because, first off, if you're looking to insult them, that's the best way to do it. If you're looking to expose how ridiculous they are, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, and you're not going to argument with them. It's not. You're just going to get shouted down. There's no use.
And you're not. They all scream, we need to have a conversation about this, which I can't stand. I can't stand people saying, oh, well, you know what? We need to have a conversation about this. They don't want to have a conversation because they won't listen. And if they are listening, they're not really. They're just waiting to talk. Yeah. Right? They're just sitting quietly, which rarely happens. You know, a conversation is not what they really want, because a conversation means that you need to listen to both sides and consider what the other people are saying. They just want a platform to speak.
Yeah, they want to give a lecture. 232-1542. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment on what Shannon said earlier, how they, like all the politically correct people that want everybody to dress the same, have the same hair and everything. They had a movie that came out, I think it was about a decade ago. It was called Equilibrium with Christian Bale.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a post-future, and they had everybody dress the same, act the same, and they had this drug called Equilibrium, and it would take away everybody's emotions. And that, I just wanted to make a comment on that. That's possibly what they want the future to become. Nobody different, everybody the same kind of thing.
Yeah. No, and they justify it by saying nobody has an unfair advantage. There's no crime. Nobody is living any longer than anybody else because of their financial status or anything like that. But look at the price you pay. Thanks for the call.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. All right, 232-1542. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, guys.
Hey.
One of the most important things about culture in general is the ability to think critically, and I think you guys are really hitting on that. The problem is when people start turning a critical eye towards things that we don't want to change, we really resist that. So the problem that I have is we're not being forced to watch any of these films or cartoons or whatever the case is, and people putting messages in them is nothing new. That's been happening since they've first created celluloid.
Absolutely.
So the idea that somehow, oh my God, they're trying to change society. Well, they also reflect changes in society. Sometimes they're changes you don't like. But, you mentioned examples like Frozen and Dumbo. The crows in Dumbo, it wasn't just that they were quote unquote black. It was that they represented black stereotypes that were blown way out of proportion. And as far as Frozen, I know you mentioned, they all have gender-neutral names. Last I checked, that's incorrect. So you might want to check your facts on that.
Well, I did. I've got set. Well, I'm waiting for the computer because it's thinking. Okay, but I actually do have some data on that about how Disney was wanting to move more towards more gender-neutral names and identities for their films. They didn't want them. They didn't want them, and I remember the quote. They didn't want it to be as girly.
Right, and part of that is wanting to reach out to people who might not fit those stereotypes because why? Sell more movies. It's capitalism at its best, man. That's the beauty of it.
So let me ask you this, then. If we're looking back at some of those old films like in Snow White and Cinderella, the conversation started where people are saying that they were sexual offenders because they were carrying out sexual assault because they were kissing women without being given permission to. Is that something that is a message that you think should be put out there, or does that go too far in the pendulum?
Well, and that's the beauty of this. I think there are various people who have various different opinions on that, and you don't have to necessarily be on one side of it and say, "Oh, clearly so." In those cases, you can make the joke about it and say, it's without consent, and we laugh it off and say whatever.
But it doesn't sound like the people criticizing it are making a joke about it.
I don't think they're making a joke.
They're pretty serious about it.
I think they're very serious, yeah.
But it's not all the same people on one side, all in one room, all with the same opinion. These are isolated opinions that are being grouped together with.
Oh, you're right. Okay, they are isolated opinions, but they're still pretty idiotic.
Right. But
they're idiotic, isolated opinions, Thanks
right,
for...
But let's be fair. The opinion of, she got kissed without consent, that's one thing. The idea of, but you need a man to be happy. Well, you know what? Maybe that is a valid criticism.
Okay. I think it. I think that it's just because it's valid doesn't mean it's practical. I think that that's something that we can consider. You're right. Maybe in some ways when you look at it, it's valid. Okay. Snow White being kissed without giving permission could it send a message that it's okay to do that? Yeah, it could, but I don't think people see it as that. I think that it's impractical to view it like that. I think that they're just twisting a really beautiful, nice story into something that's perverse and offensive.
But at the same time, like I said, that's one criticism of that film. And you and I can probably agree, that's kind of silly.
Yes.
But the criticism of, look at all the films that say you have to have your Prince Charming and you get married and all that, maybe that is a valid criticism. Not all criticisms are equal. I think that's the real message I'm trying to get at here.
All right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Appreciate it. 232-1542. All right, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hello.
Hey.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, y'all talking about the blue-haired people? Hey, you know what show I was missing the other night? You ever heard of The Man Show? Remember that?
Yeah.
Yes.
That would be cool if that came back. You can't do that today. I'm sure it would offend somebody.
Jimmy Kimmel and Adam Carolla. Well, I think it's interesting. They've both gone opposite ways.
That's exactly
Adam
right.
Adam Carolla is on the conservative side, and Jimmy Kimmel has gone way to the left.
Way to the left.
Thanks,
Thanks for the call.
All right, we're going to go and take a quick commercial break. When we come back, more of your thoughts as we wrap up this conversation here in the 4 o'clock hour. You're listening to Offsides News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
Back, everybody. Having a really lively conversation that was sparked by Kristen Bell's opinion about Snow White and how Snow White was kissed, and she was sleeping, and that was bad, and you should always get permission. And then we found out all kinds of complaints about all kinds of children's movies and programs. I found opinions about how Winnie Pooh is definitely harmful portrayal of overweight people. We're not making this up. Toy Story, problematic because the boy only owns gender-typical toys. Even The Lion King was deemed to be racist because when the wildebeest trampled, they were all black. And so it was a bad portrayal of black people. Pinocchio one is called a transphobic river of bigoted filth gushing down a mountain of sexism and racism. Okay, come on, Pinocchio. They just find this crap to make up, and it's just ridiculous. Aladdin, they got problems with Aladdin because Aladdin, the girl was promised to be married to the guy. The Little Mermaid wanted to give up her whole life to be able to be with the man she loved. I think that's great.
Well, the arranged marriage thing, I would say, would be a little...
Yeah, I know.
But it's a different culture. It just showed how that culture operated.
That's exactly right. Pocahontas, the movie Pocahontas, extremely harmful and retrograde Native American stereotypes and deeply troubling white savior storyline.
232-1542. All right, caller, you on the air. Go ahead.
It's amazing about the people on the left that if they don't like something and it bothers them, then everybody else has got to conform to make them happy. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they can't just accept that something is the way it is. No, it's got to be changed to where it makes them try to make them happy because they'll never be happy. And it doesn't matter what it is, films, music, it can be anything.
Yeah, you're right. And if you disagree with them, then you're either a bigot or a sexist or whoever it is that they're complaining about. They will lump you into that category and then attack you.
Right. You've got to change to where they feel like it's the way it should be, and you got to change and like it.
Yeah. Thanks for the call. Good point.
All right. We go back to the Cajun Harley hotline. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, just and all that line, especially this last gentleman's remarks about how they change everything. We had one of the hottest stories last week, and not a call about the sexism that Hillary Clinton was claiming, how during the poor political debates, Trump demeaned her, and it was only because she was a woman. Well, I remember watching those debates with the other Republicans. Rubio said that Trump had small hands, and, they were fighting each other like dogs. But you know what? They were in it for the politics and get what they can. But Hillary here is making these sexist remarks. And I want to just, she turned it like she lost because he demeaned her in the political debate. Well, that's a sexist remark because, if she can't handle politics, what is she doing?
Well, she demeaned a whole group of voters by calling them a basket full of deplorables.
Deplorables, that's right.
That's how she lost the election.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How anybody is still giving her a platform to speak anywhere, I can't imagine.
You're right. I'm so tired of hearing about Hillary and her whiny mama's baby crying stuff about stupidity. Just get off the air, lady.
Yeah. It takes a village.
Yeah, thank you. All right, 232-1542. That'll wrap it up for the 4 o'clock hour.
What's up, Acadiana? Welcome to Offsides. I'm Shannon Wilkerson here with Brandon Comeaux. Thanks for joining us for today's broadcast. We'll be with you till 6 o'clock. It's currently 5:08. beautiful Thursday afternoon.
Oh, yeah.
Got a little warm this afternoon, but nowhere close to being anything you would call hot. Right now it looks clear and very mild outside, and I think that that's really having an effect on everybody's mood. We were talking about it in the 4 o'clock hour about how when the weather starts to turn and you start getting those cooler temperatures, it really has an effect on people's behavior, their emotions, and their temper. Yeah. And I know that it has an effect on me immediately.
Oh, absolutely. Me too. Everything just has like a better feel to it. It's just more to be excited about because you're not so tired and you're not sweating, and it's awesome this time of year. It's
it
my
really
favorite.
is. It's my favorite time of the year. Autumn, my favorite time of the year. The fall. But we live in South Louisiana, which means it won't last.
Nope, it won't last.
So enjoy it while it lasts. Okay, so once again here on Offsides, we are going to tackle the marijuana situation because in the November elections, there are several states that have marijuana, the legalization of marijuana and marijuana reform ballots up for vote in November. Michigan, Missouri, North Dakota, Utah, all have ballots that refer to marijuana. And legal weed does exist throughout our country. There are currently, I believe, 9 states, Alaska, California, Colorado, Maine, Massachusetts, Nevada, Oregon, Vermont, Washington, and Washington, D.C. So what we would like to discuss with you, our listeners, and of course we always invite your opinions at 232-1542, the Cajun Harley hotline, is if we were going to have it on the ballot here in Louisiana. Now, we already have it passed for medicinal.
Right.
Okay. That is currently where we are. It is legal, and soon we'll be able to actually go to dispensaries and get marijuana and prescriptions filled there. However, the conversation is if you would want to change that, either take that off or add recreational marijuana, would you like that on the ballot? And if so, what would your vote be? Now, I, for one, and I've shared this opinion before, I am all for it. I think that legalization is just a matter of time everywhere. And it's my opinion that once you approve medicinal marijuana, you might as well approve recreational because it's still legal to get it. All you need is shoulder pain or elbow pain or anxiety. I don't see any documentation or statistics that show that people that want to get a prescription for marijuana are ever turned down. Okay, so it's my opinion that we should have legalized marijuana. I believe that is the revenue source that we need in our state. Now, as we've discussed many times, we also need fiscal responsibility. Okay, so there's some people that are saying, no, the more money we make, the more money they're going to blow in Baton Rouge.
Count me among one of those people.
And I get you on that. I don't disagree at all. Okay, but just to give you a little bit of idea, in Colorado, one of the states that has legal marijuana, they taxed and regulated cannabis industry contributed more than $58 million to the local economy. Now, there were $23 million in added costs to legalization, including law enforcement and social services, but that still ended up with a net positive impact of more than $35 million. They have other problems like increase in illegal marijuana grow operations because when it's legal, okay, you can grow it in your backyard. Okay, it still might not be legal for you to cultivate it, but there's less of a risk of having the possession. So you've got some problems with it. It's not problem free. But just to give you just some estimation, legalization of marijuana on a federal level would result in an average of an additional $105 billion between 2017 and 2025. It would add initially 650,000 jobs and up to 1 million jobs by 2025.
And my position on it, and as we open it up, there's a few questions we're going to ask. One of them is, because there are different stances that a state can have on it. A state can be completely against it, which Utah is right now. A state could be for medicinal marijuana and not for recreational, or a state can be for both medicinal and recreational. Now, where I stand is I think Louisiana is in a good position right now. Now, I hope that medicinally there's some areas that need to be cleaned up and better put in there. Recreational worries me in the sense that, there's some studies that are out there. They're not, I think that there's still more studies that have to be done to be conclusive on the effect of marijuana. But one study that I remember that was done on states like Colorado and Washington and Oregon that showed that since marijuana was legalized recreationally, it's shown that those states have had more traffic crashes. Now, some people, like all the time, people that are for recreational marijuana will always look to disprove those studies. And that's fine. You can think the way that you want to on it. I think that this is something, I liken this similarly to where we have all of these smartphones and the technology that has come about and how we have people being more exposed to it, and there are concerns going forward with that, such as when it's introduced to kids, okay? Well, kids are having posture problems, but they're having concentration problems because it's something that they're being exposed to. I liken recreational marijuana similar to that. And I think that there are some mental aspects of recreational marijuana that would concern me if it became legalized across our country, because not everybody's going to do it responsibly. Do I think that you could use recreational marijuana responsibly? I think you very much could, but I think that there are a lot of people that would abuse it. And unfortunately, those are the kind of people that get out on our roadways and sometimes could work with heavy equipment.
Yeah.
And so a safety issue is something that I would be concerned about with recreational marijuana.
I agree completely. There is definitely a risk of more of a burden on public safety. I saw the same statistics when it came to traffic crashes.
Yeah.
However, I also saw other stories that counteracted that, that showed statistics that traffic crashes in these states were not any higher than the increase that we have seen everywhere, because traffic crashes overall are increasing everywhere, and many people believe it's because of cell phones and text messages. However, you could be right. Or there could be more traffic crashes because more people are driving around stoned, and that's certainly a risk that would definitely be out there. It's just my opinion that once you go to medicinal marijuana, I think that you're already there. Okay, it's just a stepping stone, and I think that we can't find anything that won't have some problems with it.
Right.
Now, I also do believe, I will say this, I think that having legalized marijuana on a recreational level will definitely be more inviting to more young people to try it. Yep. Okay, because at least they don't have the risk of going to jail.
Absolutely,
I get that. Okay, and I don't dismiss that at all. And so I recognize that, even though I have the opinion that I would prefer us to have it legalized.
And let me pair that comment with this. A study from New Zealand, conducted in part by researchers at Duke University, showed that people who started smoking marijuana heavily in their teens and had an ongoing marijuana use disorder lost an average of 8 IQ points between ages 13 and 38. The lost mental abilities did not fully return in those who quit marijuana as adults. Those who started smoking marijuana as adults didn't show noticeable IQ declines. So again,
it's an age issue.
Thing. Yes.
I agree completely. I see that.
Yeah.
And I think that if we had legalized marijuana, it would be something that we would have to take a very close look on when it comes to law enforcement restrictions and boundaries, age restrictions and such. But I'll give you this. If they put the same effort into controlling underage marijuana smoking as they have in the last decade towards underage drinking, I think that it would be very well controlled. Now, we don't know until they try it, okay? But I can tell you that underage drinking has declined very much, drastic numbers since they took it seriously, okay? And so if they took it just as seriously as they do underage drinking, I think that we'd have something to work with.
232-1542. All right, listeners involved. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead. You there, caller?
Hey, you there?
Hello?
Yeah,
go
ahead.
You're on.
Oh, I didn't hear the beep. Yeah, I just wanted to say recreational 100%.
Okay, now why?
It really doesn't have the effects that y'all think. I mean, you can smoke every single night and still make a 4.0 in college.
It sounds like you've done that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Why not?
All right. You're on the air, you're on the radio, so nobody knows who you are. But so go on.
But compared to the people that go out and drink 3-4 times a night, man, they're so screwed up the next day in class. It's so yeah. I mean, I don't see any bad effects.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I do believe. Now you're going to find opinions on both sides. You're going to have studies on both sides that will support those opinions. But it's my opinion that marijuana is less dangerous than alcohol. One of the main reasons.
Yeah, I'm with you.
One of the most significant reasons is because you cannot become physically addicted to marijuana. You can become physically addicted to alcohol, to where if you stop drinking, your life could be at risk.
Well, and there's certainly stats that are out there that put a lot of weight behind that with alcohol and people that abuse alcohol.
Oh, yeah.
And how it's ruined lives, no doubt about it.
Thanks for the call, man.
Yeah, appreciate it. 232-1542.
Party on.
All right, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Alcohol is a curse on mankind.
Okay.
It's a very, very terrible substance. Causes terrible damage to the people who become addicted to it.
What about marijuana?
Marijuana doesn't cause damage like that to people. And also, we'd be taking money out of the Mexican mafia's hands, out of the Crips' hands. You know, this is a good staple for them.
You're talking about if we legalize
If we legalize it.
Yeah.
That's an important point that you bring up about the black market, because I would think that a lot of people in that field, or I should say in that business, would prefer that it stay illegal. So that way they're not having to worry about it getting taxed as well. You know, they can continue to operate on the black market.
You think that they would prefer for it to be illegal?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, because
business is going fine.
Business is going fine. That's right. You legalize it. Now they've lost all their revenue.
You know, there's a number of plant-based substances. Valerian. Have y'all ever heard of valerian? It's a little herb they sell, and it makes you sleepy like a Valium or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
You never hear anything about that. There's a number of these substances that are out there. Just marijuana tends to be the one that makes the most high.
Well, that's why people like it better.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for the call, man.
Thank you, sir. All right. 232-1542. We're going to take this quick commercial break. When we come back, well, we see the phone lines are lit up, so we'll get to your calls after this. Before we go back to the phone lines, got to tell you about our friend Chris Quibido with Satera Advisors. Now, he's right here in Lafayette, and he understands that you work hard for your money, so he really wants to make your money work hard for you.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of people are out there working currently with a financial planner, trying to prepare for retirement. You might be saving for college tuition for the future, and that's fine. But what you need to know is that different people have different needs for different types of financial planning. And so you may not have a grasp on how your money is being managed. So different plans work different for different people and their needs.
The man knows what he's talking about. And when you put knowledge together with diligence, well, you've got somebody who's going to work hard for you and that wants you to succeed. Visit his website at retireabetterway.com to download his free ebook. Again, give Chris Quibido a call at 205-6656. That's 205-6656.
Yeah. Okay. So back to what we're discussing. We're talking about marijuana legalization. A lot of states, a handful of states have this on their ballot for marijuana rules and regulations reforms. Just to give you another example, Pueblo County in Colorado made headlines for its scholarships that are funded by a local marijuana excise tax. Last year, the county dedicated $420,000 to scholarships. And this year, the county is set to triple the number of scholarships, and the tax collections are expected to top $750,000. So there's a lot of, there is some education that is now being turned. This is being turned into some education.
You know what's interesting about this as well? Because when you look at the ballots on these different states, no one has it written the same way. There are different incentives that are put by people that have worded this that would make people maybe more inclined to vote for recreational use of marijuana. Let me give you, for instance.
Simply because of the money.
Yeah, well, it's not just that, though. Here's another one. In North Dakota, if the measures enacted, not only would adults be able to buy and use the drug legally, but also most prior cannabis convictions would be expunged. So if you vote for recreational marijuana, you would be able to, if you feel like someone's being imprisoned for marijuana is something that you don't think should happen, and that we know those prison sentences are very harsh, then you have an opportunity by voting to legalize it, by letting somebody out of prison that you may feel doesn't belong in prison.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, that is a very interesting point, because many people might be in support of that, but many people might be opposed to it simply because, you did you sold and possessed marijuana and now you're in jail for it. Okay, now it's not illegal anymore. Should they be able to get out? Some people would argue that no, they shouldn't be able to get out because they still committed a crime. Other people would argue that no, these people need to be let out because this is no longer a crime. There are other forms of improvements that medicinal and recreational marijuana can have to an economy. More specifically, once again in Colorado, a study on Colorado's municipalities found that legalization actually led to a 6% increase in housing values. So there you go. You got more money rolling through your economy. Now your house could be worth more simply because everybody's getting high.
Never thought of it that way.
But that's what it comes down to. You let everybody get stoned. Now your house is worth more.
232-1542. All right, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
I got a couple of quick points, and I'm going to speak from personal experience. First of all, the debate with comparing it to alcohol, this is ridiculous. There's no comparison. If alcohol was a new substance being introduced, it would never pass muster. It's just, of course, it wouldn't politically go down if you tried to outlaw it. But anyway, I got introduced to marijuana at an early age. I came from a good family with my parents were professionals. We weren't dumb. And I was a pretty heavy user late in grade school, throughout high school. And I tell you, it just turned my life for the worse. I missed out on a lot of fundamentals in education. I got by being polite and well-spoken. That's what got me through. I went on to higher education and failed miserably because I could not get basics on some fundamental things that I just can't get, and difficult to cognitively, it has damaged me. I can attest to that. I'm a libertarian. I'm all about personal responsibility. It's my body. It's my life. I did go on to heavier things later on. I'm not saying that caused me to do so. Maybe I was had proclivities like that. I'm now clean and sober. Thank you, Jesus. But I'm for it, but as long as it's strictly forbidden for kids, and I'm talking maximum penalties.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I tell you, listening to your story, and of course we appreciate you sharing that with us, it does remind me of a friend of mine that I grew up with. And this was a very, very bright, creative, very good friend of mine. We were best friends, as a matter of fact, through junior high, high school, and then well into college. And he was a very regular and heavy user of marijuana. He used it, every single day, several times a day. Well, as he grew older, and when I say older, I mean into his early to mid-20s, it just became such a part of his life, and I saw him change. Now, I don't know if the marijuana and the drug use was the motivating factor in the change, but he did change, and he was one semester away from graduating here at USL. It was USL at the time, in architecture, and he quit.
Yeah.
Okay? He just didn't want the education anymore. He had lost the motivation to finish his education, and he has spent his whole life really just living from one short-term job to another. He makes some money, and then he stops working, and then he runs out of money. He goes back to work, he makes some money, and that's really how he has lived his life. Now, we're the same age, basically. We grew up the same age. When we were born in the same neighborhood, grew up in the same environment, and now, he has no assets whatsoever. He doesn't own a vehicle. He lives in a small apartment, and he just kind of lives his life getting high. That's the most important thing to him.
Yeah.
It became the most important thing to him coming out of high school, and now as middle-aged man, it's still the most important thing to him. Now, I will say this. He's perfectly content, okay? I mean, he's just like the dude in The Big Lebowski, all right? He's perfectly content. He's very happy. They're in a stressful day in his life. There's no way he's going to die of hypertension, okay? He doesn't worry about any of these things that we talk about here on Offsides, completely uninterested in anything political or anything controversial. He's one of the happiest people that I've ever known. But he doesn't own a car, okay? I mean, I'm just saying.
But he's happy.
Okay, he's happy pedaling around the French Quarter. He lives down in the French Quarter area, And so, your story kind of reminds me of his because it did, in fact, change his life. If you ask him, he will argue that it changed it for the better because he's so content.
I say this, and it's like anything else. It's like drinking. It's like smoking. It's like anything. Everybody reacts differently to what's put into their bodies. But when you look at some facts that came out from the National Institute on Drug Abuse, and again, I think as marijuana is around more and more in other states, I think you're going to start seeing more concrete evidence one way or another, more data. But it talks about some of the long-term effects are temporary hallucinations, temporary paranoia, and some other mental issues. You look at some of the physical effects. Increased heart rate. Now, marijuana raises your heart rate for up to 3 hours after smoking. So if you're an older person and you've got some heart problems, or if you just got heart problems in general, you might not want to touch marijuana because it could mess you up. Breathing problems. Since that marijuana smoke gets into the lungs, it causes breathing problems. Intense nausea and vomiting. I mean, I could go on and on. There's a whole list of things here. Difficulty with thinking and problem solving. Psychosis when taken in high doses.
All true.
All true.
All 100% true. For every one of those, there's going to be a counter.
Right, exactly. Because everybody reacts differently.
Everybody reacts differently because you're going to have studies that show, no, this helps with depression. It helps with anxiety. It helps with back pain.
Right.
It helps with migraines. So every one of the cons, there's going to be a pro.
But again, there's a difference between issuing it recreationally and medicinally. And that's why there would be many people that would support it medicinally. See, I don't see how you could not support it medicinally. Recreational to me is a whole big different thing, and that's where me and you differ. But a lot of the issues you talked about, if you can prescribe that medicinally, then that's what I think it was intended for. I think it was a plant that was put on earth to make to carry out those purposes. But recreationally, you get it more mainstream, I think you're going to have more problems.
Yeah, you might.
Yeah. 232-1542. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Willie Nelson. He said the only thing that's dangerous about marijuana or weed is if a bail falls on you. I tend to agree with a couple other people that said things like the most dangerous thing about it is getting caught with it. Colorado, the first year they legalized it, they took in so much money. They did what they said they were going to do in foundation, help with the roads. They already had nice roads. The next year they took in so much, they sent back rebates to all the citizens of the state. Even the non-stoners got some money back. Canada, the entire country of Canada just legalized it.
Yeah.
I think they did that because they live next to us, and that's probably pretty stressful living next to this country. So they did it, it's a revenue source. George Washington grew hemp. He didn't get stoned. What he did was use it for medicinal and industrial purposes. He's smarter than us. I mean, hemp could be used for paper, fuel, so many different things besides medicine and getting a buzz. So, yeah, it's ridiculous that the Nixon era did criminalize this and the Reagan era criminalized it even more. We have more people in jail than anybody in history, and that's costing you and me money. Instead of making money on a plant, we're being charged money for putting some kid in jail for a plant while bailed out bankers play golf. So, I mean, it just makes no sense. The plant is a revenue source like corn or like any other plant. And it's ridiculous that this government controls it so much. You have a good night.
Thank you.
Right. Strong words. Thanks for the call.
We'll take this quick commercial break. Be right back with more of your thoughts.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Time to talk about our friends over at Cajun Harley-Davidson, right there at the Scott exit. Cajun Harley-Davidson has got the best warranty offer for buyers that you can possibly imagine. It's called Warranty Forever. It's called Warranty Forever because it lasts the entire lifetime of the motorcycle. It is offered on every single brand new Harley-Davidson motorcycle and every pre-owned motorcycle less than 5 years old.
And it comes at no additional cost to the buyer as well. Regular maintenance is required, so make sure you go into Harley-Davidson, discuss the details with one of the awesome sales team members.
Yeah, that's right. Ask for Shark, Steven, Big Cat, or Shay. Great, well-informed, very experienced sales team over there. Put you on the right Harley-Davidson and make your dreams come true.
All right, 232-1542. We're talking about marijuana, and we're talking about how it's on the ballot in other states across the country. Here's something to think about as well as we're in kind of the second half of the hour. Politically, this is an issue that Republicans have been challenged on because you have a lot of Republicans that are a little bit more old school that are against recreational marijuana being legalized. And so this may be something that can drive out people that are on the left, but the Democrat Party is a little bit more supportive of it, of recreational marijuana. Is this something that would swing your vote if you knew one candidate was in favor of marijuana legalization over another one?
In other words, would somebody who is traditionally voting Republican change their vote to vote for somebody who's Democrat, who would have a pro marijuana stance?
Yeah, that, and also if you have a group of Republicans that are running kind of like how we have in Louisiana, how we've got 10 Republicans running every race.
Yeah, sure.
If one of them supports legalizing recreational marijuana and the other one doesn't, is that a deal breaker?
It would be for me. Okay. Okay. I wouldn't change parties, or that's just me. All right. Yeah. I wouldn't vote for a Democrat simply because they wanted to legalize marijuana. However, it would influence my vote if there were two Republicans to choose from, and one of them was pro-marijuana and one of them was anti-marijuana. And I think that a lot of people would probably feel that way.
232-1542. All right, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Well, on your own radio program on the KPEL, Coast to Coast Radio, there's several CIA agents that expose the fact that our own government was experimenting with a mixture of marijuana, LSD, and this other drug called DMT. And they were actually in communication with what they say are otherworldly beings that gave them information with regards to technology, intelligence, of foreign agents, enemies and so forth.
Yeah. It sounds to me like they were sampling the product a little. Go on.
Well, they got correct information, though. For example, Dr. Crick, the one that came up with the genetic strand, he admitted that it was when he was taking LSD that it actually appeared in his mind. So there you go. There appears to be some sort of force, otherworldly beings, demons perhaps.
Wait, back up. Let me get a clarification. When he was on LSD, what is it that appeared in his mind?
The double, the double strand helix, DNA helix. That's where it first. He admitted this. He admitted that he came up with that in his mind. He saw it in his mind when he was on LSD.
Wow. You see a lot of things when you're on LSD, my friend. Thanks for the call.
Thank you, sir. All right, 232-1542. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Enjoy your show weekly.
Thank you.
Even when I'm high.
I'll bet you do.
Yeah, well, look, the genie's out the bottle, and state by state is going to fall. Louisiana will probably be the last one because it's the last on every list. But I'm 69, and I occasionally smoke. I can do with it. I can do without it. But if you have a job where you have to take a drug test, that's going to cause you problems.
Absolutely.
Well, that's a whole other issue because, you got drug testing. One of the things that people don't like about the possibility of legalizing marijuana is that there is no drug test that police can administer to people when they pull them over like they can for alcohol. Okay?
You can count You can count the cheeseburger wrappers on the console.
That'll do it, okay? I'm going to tell you something. Taco Bell will love it.
Thank you, sir. All right, 232-1542. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Well, a lot of people don't know that marijuana isn't a hallucinogen. Also, our government, I don't think it's an overall positive thing. I think it will happen. I think there's a portion of our society that will take this stuff to excess. It'll be a short-term economic gain. It will make people a little bit more complacent, a little bit more lazy, and the government hasn't been doing things for our best interest for many, many decades. And I think this is another political tool they can use to gain a little bit more control. And just think what it would do for the welfare rolls. Do you think this would be an overall economic game if you take productive members of society and they start tuning in and dropping out and becoming a bit of a drain on society and not being as productive as they can be? Because I tell you what, if I would have never done it, I would have been a hell of a lot more successful and been able to support my family a lot better. But now I don't have that ability as much as I used to.
That's interesting. You know,
Comes
I
from
wonder
experience.
Yeah, it does. I tell you, and like I mentioned, I told you about my friend that I grew up with, and you know, he's never worked more than just maybe 3 months at a time.
Wow.
But very content.
Thank you, sir. 232-1542. Caller, you're up. Go ahead.
Hey guys, have anybody ever thought about when it became illegal? If I'm not mistaken, it became illegal right after Prohibition was eliminated. Just more of a revenue thing for the government.
Yeah.
Have you ever researched when it became legal? When it became illegal? I'm sorry.
No, but I believe you. If it happened around the same time they ended Prohibition.
It's nothing but a revenue. It just went from one to the other.
Well, what I'm seeing, it was in the 1900s, the early 1900s. Let's see here. The Uniform State Narcotic Drug Act was something adopted in the 1930s. So basically from 1906 to the 1930s, it was kind of like over a couple of decades where it eventually became illegal.
Right. So they just went from one to the other. It's like anything else. Like the frog in the pot. It just takes a little while before everything is what they want it to be.
They did it through the Pure Food and Drug Act. They did it through the Food and Drug Administration. So there you go. They did it obviously in those forms. Thank you, caller.
Thank you.
All right, 232-1542. You're up next, caller. Go ahead.
Hey. I'm paint a picture for you, okay?
Yeah.
This is a classic example of a person that's high, okay? You go up to them and you try and talk to them.
Okay.
They're going to respond with, what?
Mm-hmm.
You see this on movies. Do you really want to ask you something? Do you really want, I don't know, let's just say 3,000-4,000 people walking around town totally blasted out of their mind. They don't know where they're at. You go up to them and try to talk to them, and they have no clue how to respond. Do you really want somebody? People are going to argue, no, man, you're over-exaggerating. No, I'm not.
Well,
That's
okay.
That's what weed does to people.
Well, okay. It depends on how much they smoke, okay? Because I've been around people, they smoke just a little bit. You can't shut them up.
And I think everybody reacts
responds
differently,
yes,
too.
Yes, that's true. It's very true.
All right, thanks
you, sir. For the guy. I see what he's saying, though, because for the most part, it does, it does slow people down, and it makes them like the dude in The Big Lebowski.
All right, we will take this final break and come back. More of your thoughts here on KPEL.
And welcome back to Offsides, everybody. Shannon Wilkerson here with Brandon Comeaux, talking about marijuana, pot, grass, as my mom still calls it, weed, whether or not it should be legalized here in Louisiana. And a lot of phone calls, a lot of good opinions on both sides calling in. We appreciate that. Let's go back to the phone lines.
Caller, you're on the Cajun Harley hotline. Go ahead.
Yes, good evening, Brandon, Shannon.
Hey.
My opinion on this is twofold. Number one, I would rather see somebody come to work that has had maybe some smoke the night before instead of somebody that's drank the night before, because I work construction, and I see guys that show up that are hung on alcohol, and they're just they're an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah.
First guy that might smoke a few bowls the night before, and he's doing just perfect all day long.
Yeah.
The second note is from the medical standpoint, my wife has got some pretty horrific GI problems, and the only thing that I've found that works with her, even though we've tried pharmaceutical medication and doctors for the last 5 years to balance with her seizures and her nausea and inability to eat, is she doesn't smoke it, but we turn the cannabis into a butter and then cook with it, and it actually she can actually eat and doesn't have seizures anymore and no nausea.
Wow.
So it does have benefits, but like I say, alcohol is more destructive than marijuana will ever be, but it needs to be kept out of the hands of kids.
I agree.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for sharing that story with us.
232-1542. You're up next, caller. Go ahead.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, hello.
Yo. Okay. First of all, I'm a veteran. I'm 73 years old. And to be quite frank, I've got a really bad attitude about marijuana to what he was doing.
All right. Gotta let you go, man. Can't curse on the air, brother. Sorry that happened to you.
All right. 232-1542. All right, caller. You're up. Go ahead.
You got me?
We got
Hey,
you.
what's up, PC?
I always get in on the last. Yeah, I'd say for 100% marijuana is way better than half of all my people died from drinking. And I was used to work as a deputy, and I wouldn't let them take up marijuana there off the street because that's something I encourage them to do, still a drink. And I know for sure, because I was when the hippies come through here, that drinking is your worst thing. And I think the reason they do it, because people make that money off them drinking. If it was marijuana, it'd be too easy made, and that's the reason society is doing it. It's the big time want to keep that, don't do marijuana because you'll lose money.
Yeah, all right.
Absolutely.
Thanks for the call, man.
Yeah, we're going to try and get another one in before we have to go. You're up next, caller. Go ahead.
Yeah, you know what? I agree that legalizing it would be okay. But by golly, there are some people that just cannot handle it, just like they can't handle alcohol. I've known people that are stoners, and they're slow, they don't move. I mean, they're not motivated. But then I know some other people that have been very successful, and it's just the same thing with everything in life. Some people can handle it and function on it. Others, it's not gonna be good for them. But the drawback on if it gets legalized is the fact that it's going to be much more available to young people. And the sad thing is young people don't need to be getting involved in things like that. They're just not developed enough.
All right. Thank you so much.
I agree.
We have to leave
Good
it there,
point.
caller. We appreciate you.